I'm 73 years old, and there's something I need to tell you before life teaches it to you the hard way. Most people spend their entire lives believing things that sound true but quietly steal years from them. I believed those things too. For decades, I followed the path everyone said would lead to happiness. Study hard, work harder, build a career, save money, be responsible, keep going. And from the outside it looked like I had succeeded. I had a good job, a comfortable home, people who respected me, and a life that seemed perfectly put together. But at 52 years old, something happened that forced me to question everything I thought I knew. What I discovered afterward changed the way I look at time, success, relationships, and even aging itself. I'm not sharing this because I think I'm wiser than anyone else. I'm sharing it because when you reach my age, one thing becomes painfully clear. Time is not as endless as it feels when you're young. At 52, I experienced a serious health scare. One ordinary afternoon, while handling work responsibilities and worrying about deadlines that felt incredibly important at the time, my body suddenly gave up on me. Voices became distant, and then everything went dark. Hours later, I woke up in a hospital bed surrounded by machines, doctors, and worried faces. My husband was sitting nearby, trying to be strong, but I could see the fear in his eyes. The doctors told me I was fortunate. Fortunate. It's strange how close encounters with mortality can be described with a single word. But they were right, because lying there with nothing but my thoughts, I was forced to confront a question I had spent decades avoiding. Was I actually living, or was I simply existing? For years, I had been moving from one obligation to the next, one goal to another, one responsibility after another. Every day was planned, every achievement was checked off, every expectation was met. Yet somewhere along the way, I had stopped paying attention to my own life. And what frightened me most wasn't the possibility that I could have died. It was realizing how much of my life I had postponed. If that day had been my last, what would I have left behind? A resume? A house full of furniture? Financial security? Would those things have represented the life I truly wanted? Or would they simply be evidence that I spent years doing what I thought I was supposed to do? There's a sentence I hear people say all the time: I'll do it later. Later I'll travel. Later I'll start that business. Later I'll learn the piano. Later I'll call that friend. Later I'll spend more time with my family. Later I'll finally enjoy life. I used to say those same words. What nobody tells you is that later can become a permanent address. Years pass quietly. One birthday becomes another. One decade becomes the next. And suddenly, you're looking back wondering how so much time disappeared. The truth is, life doesn't slow down after you reach a goal. The targets simply move. You earn more money, and your expenses grow. You achieve one milestone, and another appears. You solve one problem, and three more take its place. Many people spend their lives chasing a finish line that keeps moving farther away. I know because I did exactly that. For nearly 3 decades, I chased success with everything I had. Every promotion felt important. Every accomplishment felt urgent. Every sacrifice seemed justified. But eventually I realized I had been climbing a ladder without ever asking whether it was leaning against the right wall. And that's a painful realization, because some things cannot be recovered once they're gone. One of the biggest surprises of aging is learning that success and fulfillment are not the same thing. Success can impress people. Fulfillment nourishes you. Success earns applause. Fulfillment brings peace. And if you're not careful, you can spend years pursuing one while neglecting the other. A close friend of mine spent most of her life building a remarkable career. She worked long hours, missed family gatherings, postponed vacations, and constantly promised herself that she would slow down someday. Someday never arrived. A sudden illness changed everything, and during one of our last conversations, she said something I have never forgotten. She told me that the things she regretted weren't her mistakes. They were the moments she never allowed herself to experience, the conversations she postponed, the places she never visited, the people she assumed would always be there. As I've grown older, I've realized the same thing. The memories that stay with me aren't failed projects or missed opportunities at work. They're the personal moments I allowed to slip away, the family gatherings I skipped because I was busy, the friendships I neglected, the dreams I kept placing on tomorrow's calendar. And the hardest part is knowing that some tomorrows never come. Those are the things that stay with you, not the mistakes you made, not the opportunities that failed. It's the moments you never gave yourself permission to have, the conversations you postponed, the feelings you never expressed, the chances you didn't take because fear convinced you there would always be another opportunity. One of the hardest lessons age teaches is that life doesn't send reminders before something becomes the last time, the last family dinner, the last phone call, the last holiday spent together, the last chance to say what you've been meaning to say. My mother passed away when I was in my mid-40s. We loved each other, but our relationship wasn't perfect. There were misunderstandings, old wounds, and years where we barely talked about the things that truly mattered. I always believed there would be time to ask more questions, time to understand her better, time to tell her things I never said. Then one day, that time disappeared, and what hurt most wasn't what happened. It was everything that never happened. The visits I postponed, the calls I promised myself I'd make next week, the afternoons I chose work over family, the ordinary moments I assumed would always be available. They weren't, and they never came back. After my health scare at 52, I began making choices that would have seemed impossible to the younger version of me. I stopped treating every request as an obligation. I stopped measuring my worth by productivity. I stopped believing that being busy was the same thing as living a meaningful life. For the first time, I started asking a different question. Instead of asking, "What should I do?" I began asking, "What actually matters?" The answer turned out to be surprisingly simple: the people you love, the experiences that make you feel alive, the work that aligns with your values, the memories you create, the moments you are fully present for, not the possessions, not the titles, not the approval of strangers. I know that sounds obvious, but most people spend decades learning what they already knew deep down, because society teaches us to chase things that look important: bigger salaries, more status, more recognition. Meanwhile, the things that truly matter are often quiet and ordinary: a walk with someone you love, a conversation without distractions, a shared meal, a sunset you actually stop to notice, a memory that stays with you forever. So let me ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. If your life ended sooner than expected, would you feel satisfied with how you've spent your time? Not perfect, not successful, satisfied. Would you feel proud of what you've prioritized? Would you feel at peace with the relationships you've built? Would you feel grateful for how you've lived? If the answer is no, then perhaps the question isn't what you're waiting for. Perhaps the question is why you're waiting at all. Every morning when I wake up at 73, I understand something I never understood when I was younger. None of us own tomorrow. We're all living on borrowed time. The difference is that older people tend to notice it more clearly. When you're young, time feels unlimited. You assume there will always be another year, another opportunity, another chance. But life doesn't make those promises. I have grandchildren now. Beautiful, intelligent young people with their entire lives ahead of them. And when I watch them, I see something familiar. I see pressure. I see anxiety. I see them running as fast as they can toward goals they haven't stopped to question. I see them searching for happiness in the same places I searched. And sometimes I want to tell them everything I've learned. I want to hand them decades of experience and save them years of unnecessary suffering. But wisdom rarely works that way. Most lessons have to be lived before they're understood. Still, I keep trying, because maybe one person will hear this and pause long enough to think differently. Maybe one person will call a parent they've been meaning to call. Maybe one person will stop postponing a dream. Maybe one person will choose presence over distraction. Maybe one person will realize that life isn't happening someday, it's happening now. The truth is simple. Every day that passes is one day you can never get back. Every year moves faster than the one before it. The people around you are changing, aging, growing older alongside you. Nothing remains exactly as it is. So what are you going to do with the time you still have? Keep waiting for the perfect moment. Keep convincing yourself that life will begin after the next promotion, the next paycheck, the next milestone. Or will you decide that today is enough? If I could sit down with my younger self, there are many things I would tell her. I would tell her to stop worrying so much about other people's opinions. I would tell her to protect her health before she was forced to. I would tell her to spend less time proving herself and more time enjoying her life. I would tell her to travel sooner, forgive sooner, love more openly, take more chances, and stop treating joy like a reward that must be earned. Most of all, I would tell her not to wait, because waiting becomes a habit, and habits become years, and years become a lifetime. Today at 73, I have fewer years ahead of me than behind me. Yet strangely, I feel more alive than I ever did in my 30s. Not because life became easier, not because everything worked out perfectly, but because I finally understand what deserves my attention. I've strengthened relationships that matter. I've explored places I once only dreamed about. I've made peace with old hurts. I've learned to appreciate ordinary days. I've learned to say I love you without hesitation. I've learned that happiness is rarely found in the future. It's found in fully experiencing the present. And that's the irony nobody tells you. The moment you truly understand that time is limited is often the moment you begin living more fully than ever before. You stop postponing your life. You stop assuming opportunities will wait. You stop treating today as a rehearsal for tomorrow, because eventually you realize there is no rehearsal. This is the performance. This is the life. And whether you're 23, 43, or 73, the question remains exactly the same. What are you going to do with the time you have left?